it's like he's in character, and then he's like, okay, bye. And then, he's just all of a sudden in a brown belt teaching technique. So, but that's the only one that I know about.
Well, it would be an honor for him to come on our podcast. For him.
Yeah, it would be an honor for him. It might save his career. I know that it's suffering right now, and we don't mind giving him a leg up. We actually have some scraps that we can send over. I have some old, smaller gis that he might be able to fit in. I don't mind helping. Do you?
Oh, not at all.
We'll discuss a couple of things, but the main one is going to be the why we need to get back to everybody fighting in Speedos. That's I don't know why that stopped. And,
Those are the best days.
Yeah. We need to get back there. Even the fat guys wore Speedos, And the second thing is the phenomena that happened between 1993 and 1996, where everybody's balls were made of like iron. And aside from their courage, I'm saying literally they would get punched in the junk like 20 times and have no effect. And then after 1996, every shot, even near the groin, would drop the guys to the ground, and they would look like they were going to, pass out and vomit.
Because it's bullshit.
Yeah, it is for sure.
I mean, have you ever been kicked in the balls?
Of course, yeah. Of course.
Like, I've been square kicked in the nuts, and like it did not deter me. It just pissed me off.
Yeah, it hurts for sure. It hurts, and it gives you a bellyache, but it doesn't do anything even close to make you go from like aggression, like attack, to I'm knocked out. Like you know what I mean? Like I gotta stop. Right
No. Well, I was trying to explain it. It's funny because how would you explain it on describing the pain?
I think I can do a pretty good job. It feels like it doesn't hurt in that area so much as it hurts right below your belly button on the left and right. It feels like a very strange bellyache. Like it's not like a stomach ache where you ate something bad. It's like you've got a really bad kidney infection or something like that. It's like that type of pain, but it's fast. It comes on strong, and then it's just like it's gone. It's not like it slowly starts to go away. It's bad, and then it just feels like it goes away. So that's the best way that I can put it, but it's certainly not, debilitating.
Right. It's connected to some nerves that end up causing pain in the stomach.
Yeah, our body is made in such a way that it's like, hey, you need to protect that area. And if somebody is, lucky enough to get a shot in there, your body is like, hey, I told you so. So you're going to get this now. So maybe next time you'll protect that area, because it's not fun. It's definitely not something that you want to do all the time. But it's not something that we ever train to. Of course, we don't train to perform any kind of strikes to that area. But there's not a whole lot of attention to defense of that part, because it's so difficult to do anything effective that it's almost like just kind of be aware that they could be grabbing or kicking or punching for that area, but it's so unlikely based on the kind of angles and the way that we do go about business, that it's really just kind of a waste of time. The folks that train, like kick them in the groin, poke their eyes, attack their throat, all that kind of stuff, that stuff might work, but the time spent working on that is wasted time, because even if you did it a million times and practiced it, forever, when you get into a fight, it's still going to be just as unlikely that you kick them there and land it enough that they, it ends the fight, or that you are so effective at the eye gouge or throat strike that you end the fight. So you still need some kind of ongoing defense and ongoing strategy. You know what I mean? Based on it, what if it doesn't work? And it won't.
Well, it seems like the eye pokes are at least like blinding. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure the guys could keep on fighting, but it like, imagine getting poked in the eyes a few times, like by Cormier. You know?
John Jones. That. What about groin strikes? What about eye pokes? What about those things? And they don't know. And so you're down an eye at that point. If you've been poked in both, you're down 2 eyes. But 2 things. One, it's very hard to get a perfect finger into the eye, but it does happen, as we see in MMA. And so the likelihood is lower. We practice, constantly worrying about our eyes being reached for. So it's like an ongoing thing. That is, groin strikes aren't, but certainly people reaching for our eyes, and that's why, because it does more damage and it's more effective. But the third thing is, if you've poked one of us, any of us, in the eye, and we've already, like, it's a fight is in progress that we have committed to, and then you poked us in the eye, then we're going to be far more aggressive than we would have. So
yeah, you're gonna get smashed.
Yeah, for sure. The fight would have, and they might be thinking, so you lose your temper, and we would still do the technical inch by inch ratcheting, but every chance we get to cause pain and suffering, we're going to do that. So, like, cross-facing, driving the bone of our forearm into the face and throat, and leaning our body weight onto the face and throat, crushing their ribs and stomach and guts, basically, with knee on belly or mountain controls. And then every chance that we get to strike, then we're going to strike. So every opportunity for damage and pain otherwise would just have been we would have recognized it, but just kept on going, because we don't need that. When you poke eyes, you have demanded that we respond kind of not equally dirty, but equally aggressive. You're not going to be, we're not going to put you to sleep, and this is kind of like give you a glass of milk. You know what I mean? Give you a pillow. You do that every night anyway. Go to sleep. So that would be a very comfortable thing. We're going to make it very uncomfortable, is the point. But we're all prepared for that, and you're not, by the way. The people that are talking about all that kind of stuff, you don't poke anybody in the eyes to train poking eyes. You wouldn't be able to train with many people if you did that. So you don't have any actual experience doing what you say you're going to do. So you and us have the same potential to poke, to grab, to all that stuff, but we can do it from a better, advantageous position. But we won't. We'll just beat up real bad. So anyway.
I was going to ask you, what do you think of the style of episode 10 with the photos and the kind of the clips?
I love it. I think that's exactly the way that all the podcasts need to be.
It's more engaging, right? Like, especially if we had like some different facial reactions.
Yeah.
That we could impose on the characters.
That's exactly what I was thinking. If we could have them look at each other every now and then, or be like surprised, that would be super effective as well.
Yep. So what we need to do is have our gals like take pictures of us in gis and okay, we need like a angry, we need a confused, we need a look over. So we need like different expressions, or like even if like a laughing. Every time we laugh, we need to have like a laughing expression.
So be looking out for that on future podcasts. Maybe this one will have that exact thing. So, but we'll see. We'll see. Now, I wanted to get into this so that I can push along with Bubble and get her on to bed here fairly soon.
Yep.
But so I'm just going to explain real quick what we're doing tonight. One of the things that we're doing is we're going to talk to my 6-year-old daughter and ask her a few questions about what it's like, or what her mindset, what she's thinking when she's been doing these Gracie games since she was born. She's been, flipped and played around with and rolled around since before she could walk. So we're going to see kind of what she thinks about that. Does she know what she's doing? Are your kids going to know that they're doing jiu-jitsu if only you play the Gracie games? You can't teach them jiu-jitsu when they're so small. They won't listen to a word you say. They won't pay attention at all. They just want to play games. So that's why we play these games that simulate fight scenarios, but they experience as 100% play. So we're going to bring her in and ask her a few questions just to, see what the mindset is of a kid that has trained their whole existence on earth in this, art form without any knowledge of exactly what it is. Now, here's going to be the difference, though, that my daughter does know, for the most part, what Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is. She knows that she has a different kind of responsibility to protect people. So she knows. She's kind of I don't want to go too deep into it, but she's not affected by confrontation or by aggression or by a fight scenario. She thinks it's all playful to her because that's all she's known her whole life. So I'm gonna bring her in. She's already got her jiu-jitsu nickname, by the way, and has since she was, I guess, as far as I can remember, like a day or two old, that she's Bubble. She still is, that she can just surface. She can, if you try to hold her down with jiu-jitsu at this point, it's like trying to hold a bubble underwater. It just comes right to the top. So, do you have anything to add to that, Roger, before I pull her in?
Oh, I'm just a big fan of playing the Gracie games. As you know, I've played them with my kids and my nephew. So she's definitely on the right track.
No doubt, for sure. And for the people that are listening, Roger was there when the day that she was born, and has been there, either physically or, in his heart. He's there for her since she's been born. So everybody knows everybody. So there's no, getting to know each other process. We're just going to jump right in as soon as I pull her in the podcast room here. So I'm good to go ahead and grab her?
Yeah. I'll stand by.
Okay, we're already on the podcast right now. So you're on right now. If you say hello to Roger, Roger can hear you.
Hello.
Hey.
So you see that we're all three right now talking. Okay? So I'm just going to ask you a couple questions like we talked about the other day, and you tell me what you think, okay?
Okay.
So what do you think that jiu-jitsu is?
About?
What is it about? Well, I mean, when you say I'm going to do jiu-jitsu, what does that mean?
That means that you're doing jiu-jitsu and you're learning more.
You are learning, for sure.
And if you're doing it, then you're getting stronger and healthier.
That's right.
Were you going to say that?
Yeah, you have a good mindset. That's exactly right. So if you, when you play jiu-jitsu, what's your favorite game to play?
I feel bad, but Crazy Horse and Climbing Tree and Back Trump Lick.
You like that? And you like Crazy Legs too, right?
Yeah, and the back truck lift, because last time I thought about one.
The dump truck?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's cycled through these techniques quite a bit. How long do you think that you've done jiu-jitsu for? Do you remember?
45 years.
Yeah, 45 exactly. That is, this year will be 45 years exactly. And if I said that you have been doing jiu-jitsu since you were born, do you believe that?
Yes.
Yes. Have you seen pictures and videos?
Yeah.
So when you do jiu-jitsu, does that mean that you just roll around, or does it mean that is it more than that?
It's more than that.
What is it?
It's more than jiu-jitsu, and it's learning more.
Yes, so that's correct. So what I'm saying is, if somebody walked in this room right now and just started to swing at your face, what would you do? You're doing exactly right, but tell them what you're doing.
You're covering your face.
Yes, covering your face. And then what? If they just keep swinging?
You lift them up and roll.
Yes, no, yes, exactly right. You're talking about the trap and roll, or you're talking about rolling them off with a big, big, big roll, right?
Yeah.
But if you're standing and they're standing and they're punching going crazy, you covered your face, then what?
You roll.
So remember, we're talking, so you rolled them off when they were on the ground, but when they were standing, you
kicked them. It was like you're lifting my leg up in.
Yeah, but so Roger's going to ask you a few questions right now. Can you think of anything, Roger? Because I think if you ask her a few questions, she might think that's more interesting.
Yeah. Well, I've got a question. What do you do if somebody just grabs you?
You scream for help.
Very good. Yeah.
And kick them.
Interesting.
That's a good one. That is a good.
If somebody's trying to pick you up, what do you do?
Then
you're doing it. Can explain what you're doing.
Make a T, like a T with your body, like this, just like you have made with a T at the end.
Yep. So what I can say that it's not, we can't show it, that she's demonstrating making herself hard to carry and hard to insert into a car. That's something that we play when we play. If she's already been picked up and they've already, so they're so big that they've already started to pull her away, that the one thing you can't do is ever be put into a car. Because what happens if you get put into a car?
You could get trapped and get hurt.
Yeah, forever.
And they can maybe kill you.
Anything's possible. When you go in that car, you might never come back out. For the people that are out there listening, you can't. If you're a kid, especially if you have kids, you need to tell them they can't allow themselves to get put into somebody else's car that they don't know at any cost.
Stranger said didn't want to say a bad word.
If a stranger did that, then they're dangerous. Strangers are dangerous unless they know the secret word. So what everybody,
the password?
Exactly, what everybody should have with your kids is your kid knows a secret word and you know that same secret word. And if the strangers or the people that are telling them that your daddy or mommy sent you to get you, they sent us to get you, if they don't know that secret word, do you go with them?
No.
Nope.
And we can make a different secret word.
Yeah, we can all make any.
And we could say the password is 12357.
Yep.
But it's actually 1234.
Yep. So the point is that you can make up any password that you want as long as you and your kid are the only one that know it. So
very smart plan.
So how if you let me think for a second. Let me think. We were talking. Hang on, Roger. Hang on one sec.
Sure.
So we're talking about Jiu Jitsu, okay? Is it when you practice Jiu Jitsu, do you practice just playing around and having fun, or also practice what if one of your friends is getting picked on, or what if you're getting picked on? Are you going to let either of those things happen?
No, because it could hurt you.
Yeah, they could hurt you. They could hurt them. So you're going to prevent them from doing that, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that we practice all of the time. Roger, did you have anything else for her? We'll edit, make this work in post.
Oh, I was just curious if she had trained, she'll roll with Blake or Hannon or. Oh yeah, that's what I was curious. Do you roll with your brother? Do you roll with Blake?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes though, they don't usually do it though.
Who do you usually roll with?
Dada.
Yeah.
I know that for sure.
Does your daddy win every single time?
Yep.
No. Who wins every?
Everybody.
Yeah,
everybody.
Do you win?
Yeah, because I'm the champion. I just got doing this podcast.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm the star now.
You are the star.
You are the star. And that's a perfect spot to let Bubble go to get on to bigger and better things. And she's going to be able to listen to herself on this podcast in years to come and tell her friends that she's a big star. And that'll be that.
Right. Yeah, I was wondering if she got a chance to roll with Blake, because her and Al are going to be, a bit of a size difference. So I'm just, curious on how that's going to go when they roll.
I think that I have, as we're able to do is to make ourselves into so many different types of opponents that I've been able to give her some, version of me that is very close to her in size, weight, skill, and that's like impossible for somebody to think about that doesn't know the way that we do jiu-jitsu. But believe you me, it's possible to make yourself feel like you're, like 25 pounds and have absolutely no idea what's going on. And, it's just steadily build from there. So she's had different exposure, and she does roll with Blake. At some point, Blake, got more into, hey, I want to play my game and focus on hanging out. And at the same time that Sage is thinking, I want to play and roll and stuff, they're not on the same time frame. You know what I mean? Like, he wants to do something else at the time she wants to roll. If he wants to roll, then she wants to do something else. But, I'm always ready. If she said, hey, can you show me something right now? I would be like, man, we got to pause for a minute. I got to go take care of this because we don't let these opportunities go. Anytime somebody is asking for help, then and genuinely like means it, like that's a huge deal to us. So we take it very seriously, and she's done that many times. Of course, like we said at the beginning, they're playing games, and it's really fun to hold on to somebody as they go completely crazy, and you never get hurt. So there's no reason in her mind or in your daughter or son's mind that they shouldn't play these games or do the techniques, because as far as they can tell, it works just about every time. They never get hurt. They have fun. They win. It's just like a totally positive experience, no negative to it. So yeah, she's been rolling a lot more lately and doing a lot more of the drills lately than ever before. And I'm not sure if that's because she's starting to feel like familiar with it enough that she knows, like, if you throw her legs out of the way, then she'll just roll over into that guard retrieval position. If you try to hold her down, she's like a wet fish. She just is nearly impossible to hold down, regardless of her size and our skill level. It's very difficult to hold a wet fish down, even if you're a champion wet fish holder, if there is such a thing. But maybe we need if there is, we need to have one of those guys on, because I bet that would help our technique out.
But, yeah. Think about trying to grapple with a lotioned up wrestler.
Mr. Utah, Pedro Sauer did that. Pedro whooped him up too. Pedro landed like 4 or 5 punches that busted him up. Have you seen that fight?
No.
So, a lot of people out there will be familiar with this, but if you're not in our, situation, maybe you don't know about this. Maybe you're being exposed to what's going on with Craig Jones or the B team, or what are these guys doing, or what do they think? And you're not looking back at these old champions and these old Gracie Jiu-Jitsu dudes that would fight regardless of size or money or any of that. And that's what we have here. Pedro Sauer was in Utah, and Mr. Utah, Lance Batchelor, was evidently a third host on a radio show, or he was there as a guest or something, and they were talking about the UFC, and they said, he's a huge guy. If you look up this guy, Mr. Utah, Lance Batchelor, he's like a properly big dude. Like, I don't know how much he weighs or what size he was, but he's Mr. Utah. Does that tell you? He's Mr. Utah. So, big guy. And Mr. Utah said he did not believe that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu would work on everyone. That size and strength would, at some point, be too much for the little guy to contend with, and that he was that level. So he wasn't able to, he wasn't like, hey, I want to challenge Hoist, because that's a little much. At that point, this was like 94, maybe late 93, so Hoist was like big star, he's the man.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not like he can challenge Hoist and then Hoist is going to respond. That's like a professional, that's like a high school baseball team challenging the New York Yankees, you know what I mean?
They're going to say no thanks.
Yeah.
They're not going to pay you any mind.
No, none whatsoever. But Pedro, even though he is a amazing jiu-jitsu guy, and if not better than Hoist, he's in that ballpark for sure. He's fantastic, and he's Elio Gracie guy, training with Elio since he was a kid. So he's like one of the kids, one of the sons basically. He's not actually his son, but he was raised right along with them. So anyway, Mr. Utah says that it's ineffective against a certain body type, and he's the one. So somebody brings this to Pedro, and Pedro says, I'll do the fight. I'll do it in 3 days or whatever. Let's do it right now. And they schedule the fight without Pedro ever seeing Mr. Utah. So the video is online, and a breakdown by Pedro is online. The video shows that Mr. Utah comes out and he's into it. Pedro comes out, and this is the first time he sees Mr. Utah, and you can tell that Pedro is completely unaffected. He's looking across. He's going to fight. So not only is there like a person in the room here that's built kind of like a rhinoceros, and we're not around people that are built like rhinoceroses too often. When we are, everybody's kind of looking around like, y'all, does anybody else see that rhinoceros guy over there? So it's a thing, right? Pedro walks in, sees the rhinoceros guy, and thinks in his mind, I'm going to fight him bare knuckle right now. So, and it doesn't affect Pedro, not at all. Pedro gets out there ready to go. It's classic Gracie Jiu Jitsu situation, application, etc. The difference is Pedro likes to punch a little bit. So in the exchanges of the pigeon and the guy trying to reach at Pedro hit him a few times and busted him. He like broke his nose, and then Pedro said the next time he hit him, he broke it back the other way. So it was like knocked it left, and then he hit him, knocked it right.
Perfect.
And that's awesome. But Pedro, I could do a whole breakdown of the fight, but Pedro already did it, and so you should look up that video, and you'll see that he breaks it down perfectly. The main thing that I wanted to hit on is that when Pedro is on the bottom, his goal is a little bit different than most folks who are Gracie Jiu-Jitsu guys, that we are kind of filling the space and managing the distance. And although Pedro's doing that for sure, 100% fact, he never gets hit, not one time. He swings a few times. Mr. Utah swings a bunch of times, and they all are glancing just right off the back of the head or the top of the head, and nothing lands that does any damage at all. But what Pedro does is, because Mr. Utah is so big, his legs won't close in the closed guard around him. So he uses an open guard, and he uses hooks, butterfly hooks, to keep Mr. Utah loaded up onto his body so that Mr. Utah has to put his hands on the ground. Can you imagine what I'm saying?
Interesting. Okay, yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, so he keeps his hands too busy to be able to use them to effectively punch. And every time one of those hands wants to punch, Pedro uses a hook to just make it go back to the ground. So he plays around with this kind of scenario until he sweeps him. But because there was Vaseline, and it might have been Vaseline that was under Pedro's eyes, it ended up all over Lance Bachelor. So he's the wet fish in this scenario. And, although Pedro is fantastic, that wet fish with the mindset that this guy's going to punch me right in the face, he is going completely crazy. So he's able to, a few times kind of roll him off, or Pedro lands there and he's too quick to go crazy. So Pedro loses that position, but he just goes transitions directly into the next phase of the fight, the next technique, And he just does it perfect. He never uses any energy. He does damage to Mr. Utah, but doesn't take damage. He exhausts him, and then he submits him with an arm lock that he has to. It's a very unique application where he crosses his feet, and he's wearing shoes. He crosses his feet in a super strange position. It's like, in my memory, it's either like over Mr. Utah's face, or maybe under his belly. It's a real weird spot, but Pedro said that he did it that way because he was so slippery that once he connected, he latched onto that arm, that he was just going to start bending it no matter where it was. So he just crossed his feet, pinched his knees, and just started going. And he busted that arm up really good. Mr. Utah was so confused that when he tapped, he kind of jumped up in a Brazilian tap kind of way and was like, "What happened? What happened?" So, but it's very clear that Pedro busts his arm, breaks it, he taps, and then when they stop the fight, then Mr. Utah is Brazilian tapping the situation. But there's no question, Pedro is completely fine. He's like 180 pounds lighter than Mr. Utah, and Mr. Utah's face is hamburger meat, and his arm is broken. So, who do you think won the fight? So that's an awesome one that's out there. And if you guys can ask Pedro yourself about this, he's out there. He's just like Professor Scott said the other day. These guys, they're out there, and we have access to them. You need to make the opportunity to go train with Pedro and ask him yourself. Ask him to show you what Mr. Utah did and how he prevented it. And by the way, one last thing about this is that Pedro said later that Mr. Utah came to his academy, and not in a negative way. He was like telling him how awesome it was and how he changed his mind, and he actually signed up for classes. But he said that when he had him on the mat that day, because neither of them had oil all over their bodies, and maybe he had Mr. Utah in a gi, but either way, that he just tapped him out like 15, 20 times at that point, because he had already learned his behaviors. He wasn't slippery, and by this point, Pedro had the whole system hacked on Mr. Utah. But that's an awesome story, legend of Pedro Sauer, of which there are many. Pedro broke a guy's arm that was holding a knife to his throat.
Shit.
One time, he got carjacked in Brazil, and the guy was completely drunk and he jumped in the car in the passenger seat, held a knife to the professor's, Master Pedro Sauer at this point, but he held it to his throat. And Pedro said that he could smell the alcohol like just blowing into his face. So he was completely terrified that the guy would just stab him or cut his throat. He's like very nervous. He's not Pedro, the guy. The guy is very nervous, and he's carjacking somebody at knife point. So he's tense. He's freaking out a little bit. But Pedro said he told him like very calmly, "I got my wallet, my keys, I got some cash right there. You can take it, jump out, take the car, no big deal." But the guy didn't go for it. He just held the knife. So as he drove, Pedro said he drove like 20, 30 miles an hour and started to speed up intentionally so that he could push the brake. And when he pushed the brake, the guy's hand, that was holding the knife to his throat, the guy's hand came off his neck because of, that force.
Inertia.
Inertia, exactly. So when he saw the guy's hand come off his throat, he just grabbed it into an Americana, and for all he was worth, just started to bend. And he said it was so bad that he broke the guy's arm, and after he broke it, because he was still scared, Pedro was, he just had his broken arm and, still locked up, twisting it. And as he was twisting, he was using the elbow to elbow the guy in the face. So he was not only holding his broken arm and continuing to break, he was elbowing the guy every chance that he got directly into the face. So he messed that guy up really, really, really bad, broke his arm. And Elio Gracie actually wanted to put that in the Globo news because Pedro was so small and the guy was, like, it was a real life self-defense situation where Jiu Jitsu saved the day. So there's so many stories that you just need to, everybody needs to look into Pedro Sauer. There's many interesting stories, and he's a guy that goes between, he has no enemies. Nobody has anything bad to say about Pedro Sauer, and he's worked with so many of the legends. Hickson, trained best friends with Hickson his whole life. Even before he got into jiu-jitsu, he was best friends with Hickson. So,
well, everyone that I've met in his lineage, remember that one guy that came in with the Pedro Sauer gi on with that was a blue belt.
Yeah.
I thought he was really good.
He was really good. He goes without question, man. Pedro is as legit as a human being can be, and he cares. So you're going to get quality from that for 100% fact. He's awesome. What was the other thing I was going to say? Hickson he would call him dropido, which is evidently if you record Pedro, the way their accent, Pedro, and then play it backwards, it sounds like dropido. So we always called him dropido. There's something unique in the whole story of Pedro Sauer. Pedro thought he was crazy when he was young. He literally thought he was mentally insane. He used to, as a very young kid, steal cars and then drive them around and drive them up on the two wheels, like just completely out of control, crazy. But that guy is something else. He's out there. He's in Utah. He's got certified training centers that the Gracie Academy or the Gracie University has started to work with him. So he's got his hand in the pot all around the board, and he's super technical, perfect technique. So Elio Gracie always wanted to roll with Pedro, no matter who was there. If he was at an event and Pedro was there, he would ask Pedro to roll, even up to right before he died. He's 94, I believe. And this video is online, and Pedro talking about it is online. That he's at an event, and the Grand Master is there. He's 94, and he says, "Hey, Pedro, let's roll." And Pedro is thinking, so 94-year-old Elio Gracie still has that perfect technique. So I'm going to have to watch myself. And in that roll, you can see it online. In the roll, Elio is able to catch him twice in collar chokes, very sneaky collar chokes. And Pedro verifies. He says, "Hey, I'm not a new guy. I'm not giving Elio Gracie an easy time. He wouldn't respect that at all. He wants the real deal." So he's really trying, and Elio is able to put his hands in his collar deep twice. So that's freaking amazing. That Pedro's at that time 6 or coral belt or a 6 degree. very knowledgeable, and Elio was able to catch him. So there's many stories about Pedro Sauer that I would recommend everybody look into. Now, I had one thing that I wanted to specifically go over and discuss, and we can do that
Okay.
now if you want to. So I even wrote it down here. So the idea is something that we've mentioned many times before: sport jiu-jitsu, self-defense, and the distinctions between the two, the contradictory mindsets, some of the technical applications that are contradictory, and proof that there is a divergence between those two systems that prevents one from being implemented at the same time that the other is implemented. Only one of the two can be implemented at any given time. Now you can mix them both together, practice managing the distance in a sport role. But if that person actually started to attack, then you would have to be 100% focused on that attack, that specific attack. If it's a sportive role, then if you're focused on managing distance and nothing else, it's kind of easy at some points to get past the guard and to, technically that defensive system isn't the best sportively. It's just the best defense in a real fight. So anyway, the points that I wanted to make here, these are undeniable contradictions in mindset between competition jiu-jitsu and Elio Gracie jiu-jitsu, or Elio Gracie's jiu-jitsu. So the key points here: Elio Gracie jiu-jitsu is Elio Gracie's specific jiu-jitsu, his personal application of all the techniques that he learned, modified to insert jacks and levers where strength appeared in the original technique. And if you disagree, by the way, that strength is in the technique that they learned in that time period, look up collar chokes. Look up judo application of collar choke, especially at that time period. Now, it's probably the same thing now because they haven't added these changes in, but certainly for sure, if you look back at the application of the techniques that all existed then, triangle, arm lock, collar choke, all that stuff, the technique as it's presented from those guys, it looks the same, but there is always a point where strength comes into the mix. So Elio, what he did was include leverage into those positions. And where leverage was already included, he just built on the leverage and maximized the leverage in all those positions. And most importantly, he applied the survival mindset to the whole thing. So now the survival mindset is in its simplest terms is avoiding defeat at all cost. Avoiding defeat is more than just defending submissions. Some examples of avoiding defeat that people don't think about: maybe controlling the position before you move on to the next position, using the least amount of energy possible, managing the distance, filling spaces to prevent effectiveness against us, especially when facing a striking opponent, like I said, avoiding unnatural body movements, maintaining focus on most likely behaviors in every stage of the fight that will create the most damage. that are likely to create the most damage. So I just said stages of the fight. So these are macro stages. And I'm just go over a few and then ask your opinion, and then we'll go on from there. But the macro stages, as far as the way that I was taught, stand up with distance between us, maintaining the distance between us, closing the distance between us, the clinch, maintaining the clinch, achieving the takedown, which is including taking ourselves to the ground and then taking them with us, establishing a safe spot wherever we land, controlling the position, otherwise known as establishing the position, and then finishing the fight. So that's what is that? 9 stages or 9 stages of the fight. And if you don't address every single one of those stages, then you're including a window of opportunity for the other guy to do damage. So up to this point, Roger, what do you think about that? Disagree, agree, thoughts?
No, it sounds very familiar. I mean, that's exactly the steps you have to go through if you get in an actual fight.
Indeed, it is. So now, I just said at the beginning of the stages of the fight, the most likely behaviors. So what does that mean? It's the highest percentage personally experienced and or observed from the Gracie family and its students, the law enforcement, military, just every story and example combined from those punch-focused opponents. But those do include non-striking behaviors like headlocks, slams, grabbing the throat. The most likely behaviors are the ones that are most likely for that person who is angry to do the most amount of damage the fastest in their mind. So let's see, where it was the most likely behaviors: neutralizing combative energy, or at least not adding to it. When the bad guy makes a deposit with insults, name calling, some kind of disrespect to your wife or children, violating boundaries, physically putting their hands on you in some way, or making statements threatening violence against you. So, most likely behaviors: neutralizing combative energy. That's our response. Let's see, one of my last ones here. Neutralizing combative energy is possible by giving up. Now, I'll put that in quotations. Something we talked about the other day, that you can say anything. One thing that you can say to neutralize combative energy is, hey, I give up, or you win, you got me, man. I give up. I can't fight you. This kind of thing. Telling the person you're wrong, they're right. Understanding fear and what is leading their way. So what I mean by that is that it's fear, even if the person is being aggressive, it's fear that's causing the combative energy to go up. They're afraid, and they're not sure how the thing is going to go, so they want to make it go a certain direction, and that arouses that combative energy. And if we both start adding to it, then a fight is likely to occur. So that's avoiding the fight is part of the survival mindset. So that's all of this to say, neutralizing combative energy, that's survival mindset. Avoiding those most likely behaviors, the survival mindset. Controlling the position, survival mindset. All of that stuff, the survival mindset. Now, when we talk about self-defense and sport jiu-jitsu, self-defense has this mindset pre-embedded. It's already included. And if that mindset is your mindset in a sport competition that's 5 minutes long and points are included, you can defend perfectly for 5 minutes and lose by points every single time. You had the right mindset, but you never stood a chance in this context because the points are what won the fight, quote unquote. But the mindset should be the same regardless. It's going to be that's what I was talking about. I refuse to teach someone not to have this mindset, regardless of the rules and the type of fight. If it's an MMA fight or whatever, that it doesn't. I never in my mind have a time limit, even if there is one. I never in my mind have points, even if there are points. Never in my mind do I care if a technique is legal or not legal. None of that is a concern because I know what matters the most to me. But what are the contradictions between all that stuff and a sportive competition? You have a lot more freedom, right, in sport competitions because the potential for damage is almost zero. It's still there in a way, but certainly being punched and attacked like this isn't the most likely behavior. Like relating that to the points, one of the points I made earlier, the most likely behaviors in a sport competition, not one of them has anything to do with the stuff that I mentioned. Slams, grabbing the throat, punch-focused attacks, headlocks. They could still grab your head like that, but it's very uncommon because they, for the most part, know better. It's not a good way to hold someone. But the highest percentage behaviors in sport competition are like, a technical guard pass, a technical way to maintain the mount, a technical way to prevent, it's all technique. It's all jiu-jitsu responses to jiu-jitsu behaviors. Elio Gracie's survival mindset is considering the most likely behaviors that are most likely to cause the highest degree of damage. So, sportive behaviors, there's nothing wrong with testing those and playing that game. The difference is that your preparation for real life, your preparation to protect your face and defend yourself shouldn't be confused with the preparation and the focus to win a competition, because they're very different things, different behaviors. In order to win, you have to do different things. Javier Vasquez told us the other day, just to kind of boil it down to the most basic way to put it, that if you were left on a deserted island and the person told you that was leaving you there, they told you, I'll be back in like 24 hours with food and water and I'll take you home for sure, 100% fact. then you're really going to have a little bit of freedom to check out the island, not be concerned about water and food, because you know that you're going to, in 24 hours, you're out of there. So no big deal. Your concerns change. Your mindset changes based on that safety net. If that person dropped you off there and they said, okay, I'm going to leave you on this deserted island, but I don't know at all when I'm going to come back. I don't know if there's food or water on the island. I don't know what's here. I don't know what to tell you, but I'll see you when I see you. And they leave. You're going to have to be concerned with your necessities, water, food, shelter. They might show back up tomorrow, but there's no guarantee. So you have to, worry about your life at that point. So this is sport and self-defense. The sport connection is, I'll be back in 24 hours, right? There's freedom there. The rules have saved you. The rules are, you got to make it 24 hours, no problem. The guy says, I don't know when I'll be back. I don't know what to tell you. You're on your own. Now the rules have pretty much opened up to the degree that you have to save yourself. That's self-defense. This is the comparison, right? The rules change, so the mindset has to change. And if it doesn't, if you live the same way on both those experiences, 24 hours later, the guy shows up and takes you home. The other, he drops you off and says you're on your own. That one, if you do the same thing, you just live willy-nilly that night, drink all your water. You found a coconut, you drank it, ate the coconut. You couldn't find anything else, but you think like, no big deal. He's probably going to be back tomorrow. And he doesn't show back up tomorrow. You ate your food, you ate your water. You weren't concerned with your shelter. Now you're in a pickle. Now you're in trouble. And it could have been prevented if you had the mindset to say, okay, now I just need to slow down a little bit. I need to worry about what's going on right now. I don't have any food, don't have any water, don't have any shelter. I'm going to worry about that now. That's what Elio Gracie did with Jiu Jitsu and the techniques that existed. He created techniques, but that's not his accomplishment. His accomplishment is implementing the mindset that the person on the island would have if they were concerned with surviving. And Elio included that into the entirety of combat. He also, like I said before, in those positions where it would exhaust a smaller person if you had to do it more than once, we're talking jiu-jitsu, you have to, let's say, do that collar choke 4 or 5 times because for whatever reason it fails, then you're activating those muscles 4 or 5 times in a row. And if you're not a very strong guy and you're not used to that lactic acid, your arms are going to get tired. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of equivalent to you eating that coconut or you drinking that water. You just need to survive and use the least amount of energy possible. That's what Elio did. Like I said, he added those jacks and levers for sure. I always like to think from the perspective of someone that will disagree. So they would say, are you saying that those techniques didn't have leverage included? Of course they did. That's why they were effective, but not necessarily. The techniques are effective, even if you do them wrong. Like we've said this before, you can get it like 50% right if you're a strong guy and in good shape and still crush most people. So it's not necessarily that the techniques were perfected. They were good anyway. And if the person using them knew them. They're the way that they learned them, and they were in good shape and strong, like Mitsuyo Maeda, then of course he's going to beat up a lot of people. He's not going to lose a lot of fights, right? That doesn't equal jiu-jitsu had leverage in every position. So if Elio didn't outright add it there, then he found the best way to capitalize on whatever the method was. Like I said before, specifically that collar choke, judo guys, old school guys like that, will get red in the face in disagreeing that technique wasn't exactly what Elio, used and taught later. They would say that's it. That we learned that, we were doing that way back when, and Elio Gracie started to use it and then claimed it was his creation. It was his own. He had done something that didn't exist before. So, yeah, the collar choke existed, but there's no doubt that pulling the collars apart with the arms was the method that they taught. There's no doubt. Everybody that's listening needs to look this up. Watch videos of those guys teaching the technique. They use the strength to finish the technique. So what I'm saying is that Elio just made those techniques his own in every way. The leverage that he used was with that mindset of not eating the coconut or not drinking the water. He wants to use the choke, but not waste the choke. He wants to use the arm lock, but not spend any energy doing the arm lock. And there's a contradiction between the way it was taught and the way he did it. Between all those techniques, not a single one is that perfected method that he used. Another thing that so we have one section of jiu-jitsu guys who would say the way that he learned the techniques from his brother is the way that he used them against people. And I don't have a problem with saying Carlos Gracie knew this jiu-jitsu and he knew how to use it. He was effective, and it's not like he was, he didn't know this. But I think that a better way to put it is that the Gracie family learned that system that I was talking about that had all the positions where strength was included, and then they slowly perfected it. Maybe Carlos here, maybe Elio here, and then Elio used it. He utilized it the most so that we're able to say, this is Elio Gracie's application. This is the way he did it. And that can't be denied. Who else did it? He did it that way. Carlos may have done it the exact same way. Well, that would have been Carlos Gracie's jiu-jitsu, which would have been fantastic too. But they're not the same. So that's where we're going with this. There is a difference. Not to say they're less or more effective, but they are different interpretations and applications of the good technique. So Carlos Gracie won many fights, beat many people up, but he got into the health aspect of things, and that became his passion. And he left Elio to do the military work of leading a family of fighters into battle, and that's the way that played out. But the point being that you can't say that the example where the guy shows up in 24 hours, that mindset is the same, and you would play the cards the same as the guy doesn't know when his rescue is coming. Those two different things are contradictions, and that's what exists between self-defense and sport. So that's a long explanation of a very simple topic that people just cannot agree on. But what are your thoughts?
Man, I was just thinking about what a bummer it was that we had that issue on the app we used to record the Professor Javier's podcast.
Yeah, we're still going to put out what we have. We're working on that now, and for the people that are listening, we still will. We're still going to pass along the lessons that we learned from Javier Vasquez, regardless of the scenario. You know, he's a fantastic professor. He's got a high level understanding of self-defense, sport jiu-jitsu, health. Like, he's the real deal. He's absolutely one of the most high level thinkers, like jiu-jitsu brains that there is. The world, you know, that exists, the culture, the jiu-jitsu community sees John Danaher as that person. But John Danaher is a fantastic thinker and, a great jiu-jitsu instructor. I don't know about his instruction, but I know he's a good coach and he knows what he's doing. But Javier Vasquez, he's a guy that has wound this whole system into a ball that addresses everything, like self-defense, sport jiu-jitsu, MMA, health, energy, mindset. All of that is wrapped up into one amalgamous system, and I would say that that's closest to what Helio Gracie thought that jiu-jitsu should be. It's a complete system. So he's fantastic. We're gonna put out what we have. We're gonna edit the whole thing so that you can hear the questions that we asked, and even the ones that you don't get to hear, we're gonna make sure that you know what we asked and what he said, and we'll get that out as fast as possible. But it was fantastic. It was a really good talk, an inspirational talk. And man, isn't that rare that you speak to somebody and they just immediately, like a snapping of the fingers, change your mind?
Well, he made such a big impression on me that I immediately changed my diet.
Yeah, he's a interesting guy, and great MMA fighter, great self-defense jiu-jitsu. Like I said, he's the full package, the real deal. And by the way, he's got a total unique program that he does that is different. The way that he teaches it, and his system for all the techniques, they're all the same techniques, but his application and his mindset is slightly different from Gracie University. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's like I was saying, Carlos and Helio Gracie, slightly different interpretations of the technique, but it's still the good jiu-jitsu. And why not paint the picture your way? As long as it's, you're an artist. The way that Van Gogh painted is beautiful. It's unique, and you can look at it and say, that's Van Gogh. And then you look over here at Picasso, it's much different, but it's still beautiful. And you can instantly look at that and go, oh, that's Picasso. Very different, but yet two highly skilled artists in their applications of artistry. And that's what I think about Javier Vasquez, is that he's an artist and he's painting a picture that is, it's the same, but like Van Gogh and Picasso, just a different interpretation. But he's fantastic. He was a guest on our show, and after that show, we spoke to Professor Dracolino, and that was another one that was like snapping of the fingers, revolutionary.
Well, it's funny. I experienced the self-defense at a Gracie Baja in South Lake with the Buzzard.
Did you really?
Yeah, he taught. He said, okay, he basically taught a self-defense version of the move, and he said, he basically explained the differences. Like, okay, you can do this in a tournament, but you do this in self-defense.
Wow. So you see that, I mean, I was just simply wrong about that. And that's what, one thing that made me want to not do my part. I want to be the catalyst for the division ending. There is a division regardless of who's on one side and who's on the other. I don't think there is no like leader. There's no big bad guy. It's just there's a division between the descendants of Helio Gracie and the descendants of Carlos Gracie, and I don't. Those guys are all too strong-willed and too honorable to go to the other side and say, hey, let's squash this. Let's bring it back together. You train at my schools, I train at your schools. We're just going to be one thing. It's going to be Gracie Jiu Jitsu, and that's everybody in the world. But that's not ever going to happen unless somebody outside of the mix gets involved and kind of like forces that to happen. Not in a bad way, but in the best possible way. So I don't know how that's going to play out. But if that happens, if we're able to do that, there's hope for the future. You know, if no resolution happens, then eventually people will forget Carlos and Helio Gracie, and all of that will just kind of be washed away. Nobody will ever care what happened back then, because that's all like, you know, black and white, silent movies. People these days are like, that's boring. Nobody cares about that. We want transformers and explosions. But you don't get transformers and explosions without the creation of film. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a situation where we can allow the continuity of the culture, tradition, and history to be forgotten. It just needs to continue. The way that we think should be there in the next generation. It should be there in the next, and the next, and the next, and just continue, so that when the sun burns out, somebody will be on Earth thinking, how can I survive this? What's the Helio Gracie mindset here? And then, you know, the world ends. But they're there and they're thinking that. That's my goal. So maybe that's a grandiose thought, but so was two little Brazilian guys, like, you know, in the middle of South America, Brazil, in the turn of the century, where really hope is lost. There's a great surf culture there, where people are, you know, happy, healthy, beautiful, but there's really no hope for a future. Like, you're not gonna take the world over. So that's an absurd thought for that time period, with two guys who have no access to the world. They barely have access to Brazil, you know, at that point. So, but if they didn't think like that If they didn't have those grandiose thoughts, then we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. The Hoist wouldn't have won those UFCs. They wouldn't have created the UFCs. None of this would have happened if Carlos and Helio Gracie hadn't had grandiose visions of what they were capable of. Nothing would have happened. So my point being that you got to have these kind of thinkers and people that are going to go there regardless. Otherwise, it'll never happen. Like the street beefs guy, if your mindset is he looks like a wrestler, I'm not going to take him down, or I can't take him down, you'll never take him down. You just gotta believe. You gotta have faith, right? That's where the whole that's where life on earth kind of comes full circle. That Christianity, Gracie Jiu Jitsu, science, everything, it all wraps up into one beautiful picture. But the main aspect that is the same throughout is that you have to have faith. You have to believe in what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just never going to happen. If it does happen, then you're going to quit the first chance you get. So that's just the way that I think. Maybe I'm wrong. But
No, I think so too.
so what else? I was going to go over some of the techniques that I learned. Like I looked back through my notes before the Gracie Academy, Hunter Gracie put out the Master Cycle. We're talking well before this. And if it wasn't before this, I learned the techniques before I knew about this. And if we had a lot more time, then I would go way more in detail. But I just wanted to hit on a few that I looking back through that I see are the exact same in the Master Cycle. And I just find that interesting that even before this legitimate academy labeled all these techniques and put them out into order, that I still learned them pretty much in the same order, just under a different school, like a different system, and without the survival mindset included. So that it's just an interesting kind of paradox there, that I learned all those techniques kind of correctly, just without what I needed the most. The main ones being, well, the thing is that there were sections, the way that the technique was taught, that it was kind of like mount controls, mount escapes, submission counters, mount submission, side mount controls, what else? Side mount escapes, side mount submissions, side mount submission counters, guard controls, guard passes, guard attacks. So like guard counters, all those things. And then the techniques were broken down into those categories based on how they defeated the foundational techniques. So I didn't learn the names the same, but I learned the response. You know what I mean? Like how to defeat the UPA is the way that I learned. How do you prevent the UPA? And it was this system for hook entry and knees, like sliding of the knees. The name didn't exist, but it's super hooks, right?
Right, exactly.
And that's the first technique that I learned at moving into the advanced system. Next was the high mount, which is kind of like those are two forms of mount controls. What was next? It was let me see. I have my notes. In the foundational system, the Americana is one of those earlier techniques, and so we learned the counters to the Americana, counters to the arm lock, control like side mount controls, where the person is knowledgeable. So it's like application of the technique, except the person isn't crazy; they're controlled. High-low guard, and which is a lesson that I have probably been taught at more academies by more people than any other technique. High-low guard. I've seen that so many times by so many people, but most effectively by Scott Phillips. I was able to do it after learning the technique from him. But I had seen it, been taught that technique many times before. Another interesting one is the safe hands technique. I was like the way that I was taught was safe spots, that there are safe spots and your hands have to be in those safe spots for you to be safe overall. So that's another interesting thing that the Gracie Academy uses, safe hands. It's like lesson chapter 2, lesson 4, something like that maybe. But it was pretty much right along that same line of techniques when I learned it. Pass prevention, knee split pass, Kimura counters. So these are my old notes. Scissor sweep. See, like, I thought, wasn't the scissor sweep a part of combatives? Or is that another? Oh, that's the elevator sweep, right?
I don't want to say wrong.
I think it is. It's the elevator sweep.
Elevator sweep.
But I don't know why maybe the scissor sweep isn't used because the big guy might just crush the knee that is inserted and they can just pass on by to the side mount maybe. But at least it's definitely taught in the advanced course or the techniques they come after the foundational techniques. So I don't
like the blue belt curriculum.
Yeah, it's the first stripe of blue belt, but it's just after you get your blue belt, then you continue to, like I said, I've asked a few people, did you continue to cycle the foundational technique, or did they bring you into the more advanced techniques? And I did both. That I continued to work on foundational techniques without the mindset again, but also had been started slowly introduced to the advanced responses to the techniques that I was, getting pretty effective at, that those instructors showed me, well, what if they respond this way? What if they trap and roll you? And that's where all those techniques started to come in. The tripod pass, one of my favorites. That's in Stripe 1 at the Gracie Academy and was also taught to me very early after blue belt. The Pizal.
Yep.
And a whole lot of these self-defense techniques. So I had saw a few self-defense techniques, but the person would show them as if they were two separate, like, what do y'all want to do tonight? Oh, y'all want to do, you want to work on guard, or you want to work on mount controls, or do y'all want to do self-defense? Like, so it was a separate thing. It was just like a standalone program. I think that's the way that they might have done it at the original Gracie Academy, but it was definitely a different thing, until Henner put it into the order in the master cycle that he did. But some cool stuff in there. Overhand knife defense, the holstered gun grab defense. And last thing, those judo takedowns that I'm such a fan of came at the end of the advanced Stripe 1 curriculum. I didn't know it was Stripe 1. It was just keep coming to class after you get your blue belt and learn the responses to the responses to the responses. So those were in there. And I definitely love that inside trip, outside trip. I stunk at it for the longest time, but because I liked it so much, I just refused to quit, and eventually got fairly decent. So I really enjoy doing those techniques. Anyway, I would recommend everybody keeps a journal of what they learn, how many times they learn it, and just as something to look at in the future. If you decide to stick with Jiu Jitsu, it's just an interesting thing about your training that you can look back on. Something fun. But anyhow, I'm not sure that even today that the academies out there are doing anything that different from the way that I just put it. That it's almost like the schools are completely against any kind of curriculum. They just want you to come in and train responses and kind of willy-nilly, because that's the best way to do group classes in their opinions, because that's the way they were taught and that's the way they're going to do it. But I think that's definitely way more difficult, and it's going to take the person way longer to progress clearly, if you look at my situation, than if you had someone that took the time to walk you through it. You just speed right on through. You get much better, much faster, and that's what happened with me. That I spent all that time kind of jumping all over the place and took forever in blue belt. And then as soon as someone took interest in the techniques that I was using and then started to build them in order, then, I did much better and had much more fun with Jiu Jitsu, and never thought about stopping or quitting, or that's an impossible thought. I can't think those thoughts at this point. It's just a part of me. But I would say that made it so. Beforehand, anything was possible. I'm perhaps just stubborn. Oh, I see how this plays. This is like a big a tree, or this is a map where all the roads run together. There's a method to this whole thing I had no idea about beforehand. Draculino said in most of the associations that that they're self-defense and sport schools. So I had no clue that this was the case. I had just made my mind up, thinking, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I getting any better? Is Jiu Jitsu this hard for everybody? Is everybody so confused? And then eventually to find out, no, everybody is pretty much equally confused. They're just either quitters or not. And I don't know, that's a whole other topic. That's kind of a harsh way to put it. You can be forced to quit, but if you're not a quitter, it's really hard to force somebody that's not a quitter to quit. But it is easy to force someone who is not a quitter to quit. Did I just say the same thing twice?
Yeah, basically.
So let me see. It's easy to make someone. I mean, can you rephrase that? Because I don't want to say the same thing like 5 times.
If they don't have, if they have the capacity to continue on even when they meet a lot of adversity, it's going to be hard to get them to stop.
Yeah. So
Like try to get David Goggins to stop running.
right, exactly. And it wouldn't matter how impossible, how much it sucked, how ridiculous the thing became. He's going to keep doing it. And that's what I'm saying. It wouldn't matter for me as far as jiu-jitsu goes. No matter how bad, no matter how confusing, I was never going to quit jiu-jitsu. But people that don't have that kind of mindset, you're at risk no matter what. People that do have the mindset, you're not at risk no matter what. So I don't know if that can be taught or if that's just something internal, but that's something that eliminates people from jiu-jitsu where it shouldn't. The people that are most likely to be bullied and attacked are the most likely to quit when it gets hard. You know what I mean? So keeping those people is our goal. If we care about making jiu-jitsu accessible to people that need it the most and getting it in their hands and making them effective, then our goal has to be, how do we keep someone who quits everything else but keep them forever? So if that's not your plan and you're doing jiu-jitsu just for you, then you're going to have a very short career in jiu-jitsu. You're going to have a little bit of fun. You're going to get smashed up a few times. It's not going to be fun anymore, or you're going to get a little bit older and you're no longer able to impose your will, and jiu-jitsu sucks and you quit. Or you don't really care. It doesn't matter left or right, win, lose, tap, get tapped. Class is forever tonight. Leave early. Punches, no punches. The mat is red, blue, green. Nobody's here. Tons of people are here. Big guys are crushing me. I'm crushing everybody. It doesn't matter. No matter what, just keep going and you'll get better. I don't know if that's where I was going with that, but that's true. If you never quit, if you just keep showing up and somebody there knows jiu-jitsu, you'll get better. There's no chance that you won't. If you're exposed to good jiu-jitsu or jiu-jitsu in general, you'll get better. It'll just take longer depending on where you train. So anything else going on special, Roger?
No, I'm just going to be editing. I think this is a good spot to leave it off on. Sophia's actually down the street. She had to go out of town to go to a cousin's funeral. So she's going to be pulling up in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to go and greet her.
Well, send my best. It sounds like I can hear Hyla out there waking up.
Yeah.
Send our best to Sophia and the fam, and we'll keep on keeping on next time.
Likewise, man. I can't wait to come for a visit. I'd love to do a couple live podcasts out there.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do some videos of lessons and training and different things, and we'll put it online. I think people will be interested at that point a lot more than they are now. And the last thing, the news that I sent you the other day by text message, maybe we'll progress on that and we'll be able to tell people about some big news that might be coming up for for the Jiu Jitsu robot
Definitely.
crew.
Definitely.
All right, man. So y'all be good and take care, and take care of each other, and y'all have a good night. Okay.
All right, you too. You take care of yours.
We'll do. We'll
All
do.
right.
Bye.